My name is Shub. I'm a Schulich Leader Scholar studying biomedical sciences and a member at STEM Fellowship. And you're listening to STEM Fellows, a monthly podcast where I have conversations with prominent STEM leaders to spark big ideas. Hello, friends. Welcome to the very first episode of STEM Fellows. This month, I'm ecstatic to have a special guest on the show, Dr. Sacha Noukhovitch. He's the founder and president of STEM Fellowship and the editor-in-chief of the STEM Fellowship Journal. Dr. Noukhovitch, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. It is a pleasure, to be interviewed for this very interesting initiative. So I'm honored to have this opportunity.
Yeah, no, thanks once again for, saying okay to being on the podcast. But Dr. Noukhovitch, would you mind just giving a quick introduction of maybe how you would describe yourself? I know that you wear many hats.
I can, if I will go into my biography, it will probably take too much time. I'm an educator with engineering background and Ph.D. in management science. I'm passionate about your generation. I simply, I think that you are much different, and you are the generation which will make a whole difference in this world, not because this was probably the promise by nearly promise made to every generation if you will go and study history, but actually because you are dealing with information differently than anybody before you.
That's phenomenal. And just aside from SF, Dr. Noukhovitch, what are some of the things that you do? You said you're an educator.
After being I spent more than 10 years in nuclear power, studying as a field engineer, then leading projects. Then I was the researcher, consultant. I reached to the point when I was in the government think tank, working on the future of the science development for the country which doesn't exist, Soviet Union. And throughout whole career, I was lecturing. I taught at a number of universities, and then when I came to Canada and was actually a scholar with the Osgood Law School, I had the opportunity of consulting at Toronto School Board, which was my first encounter with young people. And it was a game changer. So first time I realized that whatever I'm talking is not only the source of money or actually the way of making very important faces, but actually people really exchange information, and students really interested in what you're talking about. So that was a moment when I decided that maybe I should start working with young people, and I started as a consultant, and then I added Bachelor of Education on top of my PhD, simply, which was actually funny. And very enjoyable experience to become a student, not for long. They gave me my bachelor in so in one sum I spent 2 months, in another I spent 1 month, and in 3 months they gave me my Bachelor of Education. So I didn't even have a chance to enjoy being a student.
And so that was in Canada, Dr. Noukhovitch?
Yes. Honestly, if somebody would tell me that I would be teaching, it wasn't in any plans. It wasn't in any my
Just happened,
life career. But then I decided, why not? Do something what is really interesting instead of, well, and you know, my wife told me one day that I'm really. She said that she envy what I'm
What you
doing.
do?
She worked at the time. She worked for Toronto Stock Exchange
Okay.
as in software development part. And she said, I'm working with money with no social impact. And you,
Driving change, yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that story, because I think it's very important to, I don't know, people even listening to the scholarship and even me, that you don't have to have your life like set out in stone. Things just might come up, and you can still do some amazing things. Like, look at you, like you're extremely accomplished. And
sometimes you need to make decisions based on what you feel. And that let's say satisfaction from your work is extremely important. I can tell you that this year I got Prime Minister Award in teaching excellence in STEM. Yes, I met with Prime Minister, although virtually.
you got to meet with JT.
Yes, and instead of explaining to him how big and how important we should be doing, let's say, developing our education, we actually had a chance. He said that he was trained for middle school, and then he was placed in high school, and he was young, and it was quite a challenge to gain respect among high school students who are practically, not exactly his age, but we were sharing not the formal conversation about education, but actually what is more important, the human side of learning.
Yeah.
I can tell you that being an educator is very rewarding. I have close, I believe, more than 900 connections on LinkedIn of my former students.
Wow.
Some of them graduated 20 years ago. One of them is some kind of big vice president of Nike.
What?
Yes, another one. Well, of course, I'm pretending to teach computers. Why I'm saying that I'm pretending? Because I'm using this opportunity actually to teach thinking, to teach logic, to teach actually your life position in and decision making on. And one of the things why I have so much interest in students, and because I'm dealing with not all students, I'm dealing probably with minority, which is future driving force of this world, of this digital economy. And you have to understand that your voice, not the voice of, with all due respect to journalists, not the voice of activists, you are the production force. And everything else is overhead. You are the ones who are producing the, let's say, the wealth and providing well-being of everybody else, and that is very important now. The world has changed, and all these stories about 19th century labor movement, well, it is different now. It is actually intellectuals who are feeding, providing health, who are servicing, who are actually you are the ones who has to be respected. And I can tell you that that was one of not exactly the idea for STEM fellowship, but it is one of the underlying thoughts. So I think that STEM fellowship not as organization because it doesn't have political agenda, but every member should have very strong voice in the society because you are the contributors, you are the producers, and
Yeah,
that
no.
is what.
Yeah, no, Dr. Noukhovitch, have you ever considered becoming a motivational speaker? Because that's incredible.
I know my students. I do deliver the curriculum, but they do enjoy the freestyle when we have discussions on not only on political, on historical, on today we were discussing geometry. Actually, I was trying to explain one of the principles principles of the C++. And to give a right example, I said, I asked, and this is grade 11, so I don't know, I'm actually not exactly familiar with Canadian curriculum. So I asked them, are they sure that parallel lines don't cross each other? And I said, have you studied these, let's say, axioms and theorems, which is geometry? They said, well, kind of, there was no solid response. So I asked, do you know if parallel lines cross each other? They said, no, never. I said, guys, it's question of perspective. If you look, let's say, if you do one geometry, which is of the scope of, let's say, one field or even Earth, yes, they never cross each other. But there is another geometry of the space where this axiom doesn't exist. It is actually something which becomes theorem, which is actually can be calculated and proven based on the other ones. Simply, it will be the case for smaller spaces. And there is a geometry for open space where parallels actually cross. And if you look at the magnetic fields, if you, it's not me. It was, I believe, 19th century geometry of Lobachevsky. So if you are curious, look, it is quite fascinating. All the, let's say, calculations of the rays and, nobody flies too far, but at least when physics study space, they use the geometry of Lobachevsky where parallel lines cross each other. So it is...
Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested in all of that. I'll definitely search it up after. And for those who may be listening right now, if you're curious about what Dr. Noukhovitch is saying.
It is called hyperbolic geometry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm familiar with hyperbolic.
So,
yeah, no, I'll include this in the show notes for those who are listening right now. So yeah.
So you see, not the education, but actually thinking and learning how to think independently. That is what that the key.
So that was your vision for when you started SF, because that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, I've been a member at STEM Fellowship about a year now. I started off with the design and YouTube team. I helped them out with some videos that they were making. And I'm currently doing some work for the science communications team, and I'm running this podcast. And yeah, I've always wondered like what the story behind what like the creation of SF was.
The creation of SF came as a result of my understanding that there is a geographic society. People who share their interest, expertise in geography and have their scholarly journal. This is the Academic Society of Geographers. There is a physics society. There is a different medical society.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no society of digital learners. You are different kind of learners. You are people who look and digest new knowledge differently than anybody before you. It doesn't mean that it applies to all your generation, but there is definitely a cohort which actually assembles the knowledge, which taps into the knowledge, which yes, benefits from traditional education, but manages to extract the knowledge in a different way previously, which doesn't exist. So I thought that there is need for scholarly community of people who work with knowledge differently. And this scholarly community needs a journal, academic journal for this. And we have STEM Fellowship Journal published by National Research Council Press. I went to National Council Press and said, they deserve a journal.
Yeah. Oh, you just marched in. You're like, they deserve a journal.
I said.
I'm sure you had contacts with all.
Of course, I did. And like I said, I had to say it twice or three times, and then they really finally realized that there is need for a journal. And there is need for society. There is a need for organization which will bring these new type of thinkers together. And there is a need to equip them with what? With the data science. Data science as a way of making sense out of unorganized information. So that's why the two main pillars of STEM Fellowship is science communication and data science as a way to make sense out of enormous amount of information.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you like speaking on our behalf and empowering us to, I guess, become the best versions of ourselves. And I'm when I say this, I'm speaking for everyone who's a part of SF and wants to become science innovators. So yeah, thank you for that, Dr. Noukhovitch. And I know that SF is already doing some phenomenal work, like just all the experiential learning components that STEM has, the science communications team, all of the challenges that they're running, the data science team. I know that the undergraduate big data challenge is running right now. The STEM empowerment team even giving the mentorship to the younger ages. And I guess my question I had for you was, what do you think? What is your vision for SF? I know you talked about that a little bit, but I'm just curious, like, where do you see SF headed in the next few years?
Well, it is still very small. It is still very small, and I hope it will become useful for those who want. And it is not only science. It's not about science. Science, you see, looking at the pandemic situation now, what it is to make your right decision in the current, there is a term now, and that's what we focusing with our undergraduate big data challenge, infodemics. So practically enormous amount of information around health, around diseases, and how to make sense out of health information for yourself, for your relatives, for your friends, for a community, for the country. So it is not so much about science. It is about a way of thinking and decision making in arts. If you are interested in arts, nowadays, you to be successful, you need to make a decision based on the amount of information which is unprecedented comparatively to only 20, 25 years ago. For centuries, you see, as a young people, you don't have this perspective into the past. For you, it is all kind of condensed and presented in the form of history. But if you
You've
would
lived it,
think
yeah.
that it was taking centuries for simply mechanical devices to develop, and now everything is changing and challenging. First of all, decision-making ability of us. So that's why I think that STEM Fellowship should be an organization for people who want to have to be at vanguard of their own group, society, is even for themselves. To be, I can't use this term common sense because it was used and compromised, but new type of common
Inquiry-based
sense.
learning, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is not only about learning. At the end, it is community of people who can rely on opinion of each other. And that's what hopefully STEM Fellowship will become. A network of people you can rely upon.
I don't think you could have, I guess, said it any better. That's incredible. And I'm excited to see where STEM Fellowship is headed in the next few years. So Dr. Noukhovitch, you talked about the conversation of it's not just STEAM, but we also have to look at, I guess, the humanities and arts aspect as well. And this STEM Fellowship is called STEM Fellowship, like science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But there's also a huge conversation about including the A in STEM, so STEAM. And I wanted your thoughts on that. So, like, just personally, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the arts throughout high school. I'm actually pursuing a science degree right now even. But I realized that you can't have science without the arts, looking at problems in, I guess, different ways, creative and innovative ways. So what do you think about that?
I think that this is, I don't know who invented this conflict between STEM and STEAM. It's pointless. You can't really advance as, let's say, as a programmer and be, let's say, high-level programmer if you're not an artist, if you're not an architect.
Right.
And coding doesn't help you. You need to have a vision. You need to be a designer. Yes, you can do some kind of routine stuff, but it is not going to be. So if you look at everything at our big data challenge, we love and give, we are the organization which does big data challenge for high school students. We are the organization, the only organization which invites university students, regardless of their school, to join and kind of together tackle a big problem and then compete against each other without affiliation to one or another, academic institute. But if you look at the topics, if you look at the calls for the competition, it's never really kind of deep math or even finances. We were just helping University of Toronto. They had the AI and big data challenge, which was purely AI to figure out patterns of fraud in data. We are giving students a question about infodemics. It is a health, it is social issue, it is community issue, it is misinformation. So it is not, let's say, it is not science, it is not math.
It is not just arts. You need...
it is
you need...
actually, we are asking to apply rigid knowledge to social issues. So that is kind of the direction STEM Fellowship is going. So that's what I hope, and whole idea of providing data science as a way of thinking. It doesn't mean this thinking should be about science. It should be about what is the interest of student. It can be film, it can be business, it can be healthcare, it can be non-profit or charity, but within the new world and digital reality, you need to have a language and, let's say, some level of some advantage.
Maybe you can also say that art is like the medium that you can carry out all the things that you need for STEM, in a sense, I guess. But for the big data challenges that you're talking about, for the people who might be listening, SF is doing some phenomenal work with that. This year, what is the topic, Dr. Noukhovitch? Is it public health?
No, it is epidemiology. So, and what is epidemiology? It is simply tsunami of information, not just a tsunami of health information, although we are based on our partners, we are expecting that the participants will be looking into COVID information, into vaccine information, into misinformation about all this. But actually, epidemiology is now going beyond health information. It is misinformation in political field. It is misinformation in a cultural field. It is misinformation in history. So we are asking students to find the patterns and use computational thinking. So we use what the power they have to find, let's say, to find a way to deal with this avalanche of data.
That makes sense. Okay. And yeah, I actually competed in the undergraduate big data challenge last year. So we were looking at the different ways that countries handled the COVID-19 pandemic. And I guess, yeah, just found out what the ideal way would have been to go about handling it. So that was a very rewarding experience. And anyone listening, if you have the opportunity to take part in the Big Data Challenge, I highly encourage that you do. It was an amazing experience. And it's not just for undergraduate level, they also have it at the high school level as well. So look into that as well. But yeah, maybe we can steer a bit. I actually want to get into some of the, I guess, underlying issues that come up in STEM as a whole. So I guess there are problems that come up with every initiative and subject. For instance, there's lack of diversity and underrepresentation in STEM right now. And I know you touched on this a bit earlier today, Dr. Noukhovitch. For example, not every member of society right now has the same opportunities. And I really think it's critical to address some of this, because we won't be able to fully harness the potential of the thinking that you're talking about, and I guess just STEM innovation as a whole. So I guess if we have diversity in STEM, then I think we can have more perspectives in addressing some of the issues that we're facing. And I wanted your thoughts on maybe some of the ways we can make STEM more encompassing and inviting to all.
I think that first of all, if you would look at the composition, if you would look at our steering committee, if you'd look at our board, at students who are active in STEM, you will find that it is practically 99% either immigrant or from let's say second generation immigrants. So it is all, and that's the beauty. So no other country would be able to have this talent at hand. So STEM couldn't appear, let's say, in any homogeneous country, probably not even in States. But Canada allowed us to create an organization where becoming a STEM member was not a question of your original, it was a question of your mentality. So right. If you were interested, and that's what I believe should be the critical path to overcome, let's say, inequities and maybe some disproportional representation. I believe it should be not an accountant's approach. It should be motivational approach. When students are invited and they have an opportunity to develop their own ideas, and the ideas come first, and their colors doesn't matter, and that's what creates real diversity. That's the because diversity comes. There is kind of routine discussion about girls underrepresented in STEM subjects. If you look at STEM fellowship, we don't see this in among our groups. If you look at Big Data Challenge, you wouldn't see it, neither at high school, no at university level. Why? Because we are not making this event for girls, for boys. Or
very welcoming, yeah.
Because we are thinking about our events from the motivational perspective, not from the statistical or appearance. And that is the critical element. If you want real diversity, you start not at the end when you start counting who is in the room. But right. Actually, you start with a topic which brings you people of all the types. And that is what we're doing. We're giving girls natural data scientists. Give them an opportunity to solve the problem of infodemics, and they will be leading the groups of boys who will be doing computing, and they will be doing thinking. So.
And I think that is very important. Like, for example, I myself, I'm a minority. I was born in India, and then we moved to Canada when I was about 2 years old. And yeah, I've never felt excluded just with all the work that I'm doing with SF. It's very welcoming, and they're actually encouraging underrepresented groups to get more involved in STEM. So that's what one of the things that I love about SF. And I think they should continue doing that. What else was I saying? And just talking about how diversity is so important in science. If you just take the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, I know that we wouldn't have been able to even come close to a new normal if it wasn't for all of the countries around the world getting together. I know that early on, China, they shared some data that normally wouldn't have, I guess, occurred just with how competitive science might be. And I think it's important to have that diversity, have those different perspectives, because different cultures might approach problems in a different way. And I think that's what's going to really now allow innovation.
One of the, you ask about the future of STEM fellowship. I don't think that we will, maybe if we'll be lucky and we'll find a good partner, I can only dream about STEM fellowship developing into a new type of educational institute based on open science. Wow. Because everything what we do, our journal is open access. We are using all the our competitions. All our competitions are based on open data. We are thinking open science. We are breathing open science. And that's when I was talking about your generation pulling the information, pulling knowledge out of the air. It is open science. This is the, we don't have, let's say, methodics, because you are doing it intuitively. There is no, let's say, professor to show you how to do it.
It's not like a step-by-step,
Yeah, how to do it more efficiently. But I hope STEM Fellowship can be an organization to develop these best practices and maybe be some form of learning environment where students teach students how to be native to open science. And that is I'm a big believer in open science, and I think that the future is only with open science. And I can give you another name. It is Norbert Wiener, who actually the founder of cybernetics. Nobody remembers that computers are actually cybernetic devices, but he was mathematic at the beginning of 20th century. He wrote a book, Cybernetics of Society, where he proved that any secrets, they kind of bite back, they hit back those who keep the secrets. Again, from the cybernetics point of view. So I am a big believer that knowledge should be shared.
And I was just touching on all that you're saying, Dr. Noukhovitch. One of the reasons, I guess, why I started this podcast was to inform and share the array of resources and opportunities that are, I guess, available to students, and I guess just about anyone, make it easier for them to access and become successful. And I was wondering, do you have any resources on the top of your head that I guess you share with everyone or anyone listening to the podcast, whether it's like the different opportunities in STEM or just anything that they might want to get involved with?
Well, you were promoting our Big Data Challenge, which happens every year. And this is the way for students practically to take a big, real problem and try to solve it their own way without curation and although with the help of experts. I'm also inviting students to our STEM Fellowship Journal because it is designed to give students their first opportunity of scholarly publication, which means getting noticed by academic community if it is within their interest. But other than that, well, it is simply being part of the STEM Fellowship as network, because the most interesting it is you guys. You are presenting the most of the knowledge. You are having in interaction with each other. You are creating most interesting things, which will be the future, not only of let's say the science you're working on, but it will be the future of economy. It will be the future of the world, and that's why I think that this is what I would like to invite you. I can give you every time I have some kind of book which I read. You see, this one was written, I believe, in 1930 something. Maybe somebody has problems sleeping, although at your age it is rarely, and would like to have going through this book and then finding, oh, somebody already had these ideas which I which were the reason this person couldn't fall asleep.
Yeah, there's a few things I wanted to touch on, but I just want to say thank you for sharing that, first of all. I guess I'll ask the book recommendations. Do you have any book recommendations for, I guess, me and anyone who's listening?
Well, Cybernetics of Society. Let me see. Norbert Weiner. He's called father of cybernetics. This guy, he finished high school at the age of 11. Well, it was a different high school back then, yeah, he was definitely a great professor.
And then you joined academia after high school?
Let me simply share with you the link to his Wikipedia, okay. Because the reason, well, any book would be interesting from him, but when he was talking and applying the principles of automation to the society, that was something which I remember puzzled me so much. And you see, I'm first generation immigrant. So I came here with first of all, I came late. I was 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Not being able to speak English, but when growing up in Soviet Union and finding that keeping secrets is actually absolutely wrong thing to do, it was fun. I loved it. I love this scientist very much.
Is he one of your of the people who you look up to?
He was American. He was wrong simply by the fact that he was born in America. He was wrong person, but he was saying interesting things.
It's like conflicting worldviews, but
yes.
You liked what some of like his work instead of his
no, I'm joking. He was mathematician, so he when he probably, and that's the reality. When you think science or think critically, mm-hmm. all these let's say bias which can be imposed on you, it simply it kind of peels off.
And how do you encourage students to get into that mindset, Dr. Noukhovitch, like that critical thinking mindset? Because usually students, they just want their like answers passed down from teachers, etc. They're not going to learn. So, like, how do you recommend that students get into that aspect?
You see, that is that's why I believe STEM fellowship is so valuable, because I believe it is a group of people who value their own opinion. Mm-hmm. And you see, find answer it is such a, who cares about answers? It is not really finding who is, let's say, finding that teacher is wrong, finding that somebody is, practically, I invite everybody to be critical of everything they presented. You hear political story, listen and try to imagine that this story is told by the opposite part.
Looking at those different perspectives.
Yeah, you hear the cultural story. Try to imagine that this story, one of the biggest advantages of STEM fellowship, it is practically, I said, it's practically 100% immigrant. You probably have at least one extra language in which you can read, and it means that you have another source of information and another angle on everything. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean a question of politics. It means even about if you study, you said that you are interested in media studies. Media studies from American perspective, or media studies from Indian perspective. Who is right? There is no right. But if you have two angles, you have an advantage.
You can come up with your own opinion, and
you have your own opinion. This is critical thinking. When you have a competitive alternative. So think about competitive alternatives in your life. Always try to find them. And that is what will keep you afloat, which will keep you happy, which will keep you kind of giggling. When everybody will be serious, you will be quietly giggling.
Yeah. And talking about giggling, I think it's really important to, I guess, enjoy the things that you're doing as well, rather than, right? So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah, and that's when you see multiple. The world has many dimensions. When you see more than one, you are free. You are free from being kind of cornered and forced into something which you can later could regret, or it is real freedom. So that is what need to be done, and you are well equipped. Extra language is it's something. Extra knowledge, different positions. Don't reject what you, don't put them kind of against each other. Try to see simply try to be to see it from different angles, and then and then you will see the reality in between.
No, I completely agree. Yeah. And a final question I had for you. I know that you're an incredibly accomplished person. And for me and other aspiring STEM innovators, I was interested to hear if you had any words of wisdom for us, maybe some knowledge that you can impart to end the show.
Well, it is very difficult. Don't listen, first of all, to these old people. They don't know anything. We grew up in reality which was nothing to do with what is happening now. So you have more knowledge of what new ways and new careers and new developments. So the only criteria which you have to kind of to have for yourself, it's ambition. So you have to be driven by ambition. Don't get satisfied with what you have. If you have enough ambition, you will. And yes, one other thing, too much ambition will make your life miserable. So try to give yourself a few breaks, but not too much. Once you will get, let's say, into your 40s, you would be able to give some slack. But while you are a student, you have to go with a banner ambition and practically and all the technicalities you know better than anybody else.
No, I can't thank you enough for joining me today, and I really appreciate everything that you've said today. Yeah, Dr. Noukhovitch, it was a pleasure having you on the show. If you didn't have anything else, then again, I think we can end it. And thanks again.
Thank you, and have a great evening.
That's all for this month. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have questions or thoughts about this episode or just want to connect, I'd love to get an email from you at the email address that's listed in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.